What up, everybody? My name is Nova, aka DieResponsibly. I'm an artist, engineer, producer, and owner of Serenity Record Studios. For today's video, I just basically wanted to show you guys like a little bit about music theory. So first things first, I got my guitar here. You guys kind of need to know a little bit about how a scale is formed and what a scale is to begin with, right? So I don't know if you guys know much about guitar, but for those that don't, whenever you go from one fret to the next, that's like moving over one key at a time on a piano. So when I do one step here, imagine just moving over one half step on a piano. Speaking of that, right, a half step and a whole step, that's a very important subject. So a half step is moving over one step over. So from this one to this one, right? But a whole step is moving from, so it's moving two frets over. So 1, 2, and what a scale is basically then is just a combination of whole steps and half steps. So for example, minor is this specific combination. It's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. So it basically goes like this. And then backwards it will go. And that's kind of like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Also, like for a major scale, for example, it's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then half step. So it sounds like this. That one sounds a lot happier than the other one that I played, which is a minor scale, because a minor scale is usually like a little bit darker. But basically, right, when you have a scale, then right, so I'm playing E. E is basically like playing this last one right here. Like this is a fret basically, but it's an open chord or an open note. So this is E, and then this is F right here. The first one is gonna be F. So when you have a scale and you have your notes set up, the one, this is the one. Say I was doing E minor, right? This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to the 1, which is also an 8. But that's called the octave right there. So the reason why we number them is because there's certain properties of each chord, for example, in that scale. So if you have the 1 is gonna be minor because you're in a minor scale. So if I was playing E minor, it would sound like this, right? The 2 is diminished. I'm not gonna lie, like I don't know much about diminished chords, so I don't even know how to play one, but I just know that it's not usually used in most chord progressions and things like that. So I'm gonna skip that one, but I'm gonna go to the 3. So this is the 1, 2, 3, right? The 3 is major, so it's gonna sound like this. So another thing to note, which is cool about music, and I love learning things like this, is that a minor scale is the same as a major scale, it's just transposed over. So for example, E minor is gonna have all the same notes as F sharp, G major. So whatever your 3 is, that one's gonna be your relative major. But yeah, moving on. After that comes the 4, and the 4 is minor. So the 4 for us is going to be right here. So all together now, like basically we have, then we have, and then after that comes the 5, which is also minor, right? And then next after that comes the 6, which is major, and the last one is the 7, which is also major. So one thing that's cool about guitar is that we don't really think about things in terms of major or minor. A lot of times we use just shapes, and one of the biggest things that you're taught when you first start learning guitar are the shapes. So basically, like if you're doing a minor, for example, this is the shape right here. So you basically bar down where the bass note is, and then you put your ring finger and pinky finger 2 steps down on the 2nd and 3rd string, and then you just play like that. That's the shape, so you guys can see closer. But to make that minor a major, you just put your middle finger down on the fourth string, on the second string away from the bass. So basically like this, you know, and you guys can look up the chord shapes and all that type of stuff, learning how to play them. But what's cool about that is that after you start to make connections, like, you know, the 1 is minor, so it's this shape. The 3 is major, so it's this shape, and then, you know, you just know the 3 is 3 steps, half steps away, you know, that type of stuff. You start to put things together, and after a while you become a little bit more comfortable with the guitar. One of the next things that you would start to learn is called the pentatonic shape, the pentatonic scale. So say I had you know, E minor, which we were doing before, right? You learn to do shapes, like for example, it's right, and that is basically just the 1, the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 7. Those are the 5 notes that make up the pentatonic scale. And what that does is once you lay down your chords, right, you can just play the pentatonic scale on top of it, and those notes that are in that scale will always sound good with the progression. Like, they will always sound good as long as you sequence them properly. But think of those as ghost notes that just basically will always sound good with the chord progression. So it's basically the same 5 notes repeating themselves. So for example, it goes 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, right? And then it goes 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, and then it goes 1, 3, you know, and it keeps repeating. Then after that, you learn like the next shape over. So then after that, it will be. Then after that, and then the last one is. Right? And then after that, it repeats again. So, you know, and I'm sorry, I haven't been putting the guitar in camera, but basically you can look up the shapes for these as well online. After a while, you start mapping these out so that you can just comfortably like flow around the guitar. One of the next things that I wanted to show you guys in terms of music theory and guitar is just transposing something over is very easy. For example, like we were playing, and that's the E minor scale, right? But if I start on F, right? This is F right here. If I start here instead, and I do the same pattern of half steps and whole steps, then I get F minor, right? So it'll go, right? And then the next one after that is, you know, and then so on and so forth. You get higher and higher. What's also cool about that, for example, right? So like I said, there's shapes. This is a triad shape right here for a minor chord, right? So this is F sharp minor, right? So if I play that 1, that's the 1, right? And then I play the 7, right? And then the 5, and then the 6, right? If I play that, I can easily transpose that over if I wanted to. So instead of starting right here with this shape, I will start over here with the same shape, and then just start it over a fret up, or however many frets up or down. Then so that's an easy way to transpose things up and down. And another thing that's cool about this is that you can do all of this on MIDI as well. So everything that I'm teaching you on here, you can easily like go back to MIDI. And another thing that's cool is like even piano, for example, we have guitar shapes, but on piano, like the distance between your fingers is how it's done. So yeah, what I was just doing is basically called a chord progression, right? Because you know, you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? But they all correspond to a chord. So there's just a bunch of, you know, chord progressions out there that are popular in music, and that's what I was going to show you guys. So I was doing an F sharp minor, right? I was doing the 1, the 7, then the 5, and then the 6. Another thing to note also is that you don't have to play them in chords. If you wanted to, you could just play them in a pattern, and it'll sound like this. mean, that's a very simple pattern, but you start to get more advanced with it. For example, you know, you can do like a 1 6 7 progression. You can also add like minor sevenths and stuff like that. Eventually you start to learn that type of stuff too, so you can do it like this. This is a 1 6 7 progression. And what's interesting, like what is cool to note about that as well, is that I'm just playing a chord progression, right? Right? I'm playing that progression, but I'm doing it in a pattern, so it's not just, it's gonna be like this. You know? And as you like get better and better at that, you start to make better patterns and more complex chord progressions and that type of stuff. Alright, so to wrap it all up, and basically, you know, so that this video doesn't come out to be like a 20-minute long video like I've been doing before, you can then, right, so with everything that I've taught you so far, the scale and all that stuff, the pentatonic scale and making chords and stuff like that, right, and you learn the shapes and that type of stuff. After a while, you learn how to put notes in between your chord progressions, right? So I was doing the 1 7 5 6 progression earlier, right? But if I wanted to add some notes in between there, one of the first things you gotta do is like start memorizing like the pentatonic shapes that I was talking about earlier. But then you start to spice up your chord progression so that there's things in the middle, in between the chord switches. So let me show you an example. Basically, is so I'm not the best player, you know, but you get the gist of what I'm saying, and it's even easier when you're doing that on FL Studios because you can just mess around with it, and even if you don't have the muscle memory yet to like move your fingers, which is one of the big things that I didn't have at first either. Like I knew a lot of music theory when I picked up the guitar, but I didn't know a lot of I didn't have a muscle memory to like be able to just move my fingers so flawlessly, and that's something that you have to build as well, and also like forearm strength, because you know holding down chords is not easy, and you'll find out if you pick up a guitar for yourself that it's not easy to just press down all the strings at once and all that type of stuff. But yeah, man, I hope you guys learned something from this, whether it's gonna be put to use on the guitar or whether it's gonna be put to use on piano or whatever the case may be, because music theory is something that applies to like all music. And after a while, you know, you learn other scales that are not just major and minor. You can learn like harmonic minor or melodic minor or Dorian scale, that type of stuff, and it gets a little bit more complicated at that point. But you know, I would say definitely if you're making like hip hop stuff, try out the minor scale, because that's gonna be mostly like what people use in hip hop is the minor scale. And one thing to keep in note too is like minor chords tend to sound a little bit darker than major chords. You know, major chords are a little bit more happier. So if you keep that in mind when you're making the progression, then you know what kind of chord you want next, you know what I mean, out of your progression, whether it's going to be a happier one or if it's going to be like a darker one. But yeah, I always start to ramble again at the end of the video, so I'm just going to keep it short, and you know, hope you guys learned something. Like I said, my name is Nova, aka DieResponsibly. Follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, on, you know, Facebook, on MySpace. What else? LinkedIn. Nah, I'm playing. But yeah, follow me there. Leave a like, leave a comment if you learned something, and you know, tell me what you guys want to see from the channel. And you know, peace out, man.